Hello and welcome to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Rich, and as the founder of the Bold Life Movement and a fellow coach for more than 7 years, I know the challenges that many of you face when launching or growing your coaching business. And I'm here to pull back the curtain on the coaching industry and help you overcome roadblocks to make the impact you were born to make. Each week, I'll be interviewing successful coaches from every corner of the industry to share exactly how they have managed to generate massive impact and income. From strategy to psychology, we cover it all. This show is presented to you by Transformation Academy, a global marketplace of courses and coaching certifications. So whether you are already part of our epic community or you're brand new to this show, if you're ready to learn what it takes to turn your passion for service into a profitable business, then keep listening. You are in the right place. Welcome back to episode 43 of the Profitable Coach Podcast. Today is a really unique conversation with my dear friend, Sarah Waldbuesser. Sarah is an online legal attorney, and she helps coaches and online business owners to legalize and legitimize their businesses through things like contracts and trademarks. And I really wanted to invite Sarah onto today's show because I see so many coaches either skipping this step or thinking way too much about it, like overcomplicating the legality of being a legitimate coach. And so I really wanted to dumb it down and make it really accessible for people. And Sarah does just that with her business, Destination Legal. So if that's something that you are interested in, you want to make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, then stay tuned because it's a really interesting conversation about how to make legal easy. With that, I will invite my dear friend, Sarah, onto the show. Hello and welcome back to the Profitable Coach Podcast. I'm so excited today because I have my dear friend, Sarah Waldbuesser, who is an online legal expert and trademark attorney joining me. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited because I think that when new coaches are launching their business, there are like a million different things that they could be focusing on. And one of the things that often gets overlooked is making things legit, like crossing their T's, dotting their I's. So I wanted to bring you into today's conversation to sort of shine a light on and simplify some of the legal aspects of starting one's coaching business. So tell us a little bit, give us a little backstory. How did you even get into this? You go to law school. How did you get to where you are right now? Living in Chiang Mai, Thailand, running an online business for other coaches. Connect the dots for us.
Yeah, well, there were a lot of dots. I'll try to keep it somewhat short here. We never know how our story is going to end up, but then when it's here, it kind of makes sense. So I went to law school, mostly because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't imagine myself doing any job for the next 50 years, which, I'm a little bit older. And back then, a lot of this stuff didn't exist. There was no such thing as an online business in 2002 when I graduated college. So I went to law school. I was like, can't hurt. I want to help people. After law school, I moved to Washington, D.C., started working at a law firm and knew pretty much within 6 months that it was not for me. I had no interest in being a partner and working 80 hours a week and having the corner office. As you know, Kim, I love to travel. And so I was just like, this is not going to work for me. So I stuck it out for 2 years, made some good money, but in the end, that was not enough. And from there, actually went back to school, got a master's in public health, and spent the next 2 years working in international health and policy. And for all intents and purposes, had my dream job of getting to travel. I got to go to Africa and Asia and the Middle East, and I was working on international health treaties and writing reports and doing exciting things for the government. But it really wasn't that exciting, right? So I got to travel a little bit, but then the rest of the time I was in a windowless office in Washington, D.C. So one day, I started Googling. This was probably like 12 or 13 years ago now. Travel and work online. And I came across this podcast started by two guys called the Tropical MBA, and they were working from their laptops in Bali. And I was like, what is this? These people are running a business from their computer. That is amazing to me. And so I started listening to them every day on my commute to and from work, walking in DC. And I was just learning and thinking about what a dream it would be to be able to travel and work at the same time. And a little bit after that, they were offering a course in the Philippines for 2 weeks to go and learn how to start your online business. And that was it for me. I quit my job. I cashed in my 401k. I went to this little island in the Philippines and started my first online business called the Bootstrap Lawyer. Now, the Bootstrap Lawyer didn't last long for a number of reasons. One, I didn't know what I was doing. This was back in 2012. Online virtual legal services were not a thing. This was very new. I didn't really have models to look to. I didn't like being a lawyer, so I was like, why would I want to do this? And so after about 6 months, I kind of shut that down, but I knew that I wanted to be in the online space. So after that came a series of, I started an e-commerce store and did some consulting for other online shops and went into my digital nomad days where I met you and traveled for a few years in Thailand and Vietnam and Europe. And it was amazing. But I financially, I was struggling. I didn't know what I was doing. I was still consulting for my previous job and finally decided to settle back into the US. And that's when I found the world of coaching. So I signed up with my first life coach and I was like, what is this whole world here? This is amazing. And that kind of led me to health coaching. I did a health coaching program because that's always been, a real interest of mine and passion. And I was like, if I can help myself and help other people, how amazing that would be. But once I was in that program and actually started coaching, I was like, nah, I don't really want to do this. But I kept getting questions from these coaches. Once I found out that I was an attorney, what do I need? What do I need in my contracts? And that's kind of how I stumbled into this. I joined a business program and met a bunch of business coaches and really saw how big the need was in the coaching world for someone to help these people because people were scared, intimidated by legal. They knew they needed it, but they didn't know where to start. And so, for a while I was like, well, maybe I'll be a business coach and a lawyer because I really love building businesses as well. That was all, as you know, that was also short-lived because people kept wanting the legal side. So there was a pretty much like a come to Jesus moment where I was really struggling with money. I was, I had to ask my parents to help me pay rent. My dad was like connecting me with law firms. I was living in Chicago at the time. And I was like, nope, this is not happening. And so at that point, I was like, I'm going to go all in on this legal side and just see what happens. And so the universe responded really quickly. I had like 3 or 4 clients within the next month. 6 months later, I had my first 10K month and it just grew from there. And so it's really been an awesome journey. I never thought I would be doing legal in this way. And I will tell you to this day, I still don't love sitting, thinking and talking about privacy policies, but I love, love, love what legal does for people. And I love being there to help them. I know how important it is. I know that it can make or break your business. I love brand protection. And it's just been really exciting to help so many coaches feel more confident and empowered in their businesses because that's what legal does. So one of my trademarks is protect your passion. And so it's really one of my passions to help others protect theirs because I believe, and I know you believe this too, like the more people out there living their passion, doing what they love, helping people, the better off that we all are. So that's kind of the story of how Destination Legal was born and where we are today.
I love that. So just to take a couple steps back for anyone who missed it, Sarah and I met, I think originally in Thailand, or was it Berlin? Were you at the Berlin event?
We were in Berlin together, but before that we were in Thailand together.
Yeah, my first DC event was Berlin, April 2013. So it was Thailand where we met. Yeah, it's been so cool to see Sarah
grow her business, because I knew her back in the sort of like, F it, I'm going to try e-commerce days. And like, I was on that same boat, launched my first e-commerce business living in Thailand, like taking customer service calls at 3:00 in the morning, my time. It was hilarious. And then we both seemed to find coaching right around the same time. And then we found ourselves in this year-long program that we forked over tons of money for. And I want to say you completed that program, right? I did not. Did you?
I
No,
did
you
not.
didn't either.
I did not either. Yeah.
Hilarious. It's okay though. It's all led us to where we are now. So I feel really like inspired to see what Sarah's been able to create for herself and the impact that she's been able to have, because we used to have these weekly mastermind calls as we were building our coaching business. And so I know the struggle that we both were facing in those early days, and the impact that you've been able to make now that you like listened to a different call. So to switch back over to legal, I would love for you to share, what are some of the things that people don't understand about making their business legal when they're first starting? Things that they think, oh, I don't really need that, that's not a big deal, that actually are. And then maybe if you can speak to the opposite end of that, things that they stress about that maybe they don't need right out the gate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good question. So, one of the big things people don't realize is how much legal is kind of a mindset issue. And if you aren't taking legal in your business seriously, then you're not actually really taking your business seriously. So I think one of the most important things is for new coaches to actually treat your business like a business from the beginning. Like you really mean it. Like show the universe that you actually are here to stay. And one of the ways that you do that is by getting your legal foundations in place. And so I think coming at legal not as like something I have to do, something I have to spend money on, but something I get to do that is going to make my business better, that's going to make me a better and more empowered coach from the beginning, that's going to make me appear more legitimate to my clients. Because especially these days, if you have a client ready to sign with you and you have nothing for them to sign, like that's a huge red flag these days, right? Or if you just toss them over one paragraph that you found on Google, like that's going to show them that you aren't necessarily taking your business as seriously as you should. So I think thinking about legal is what it can do for you and how awesome it is, instead of this like terrible thing. Because fortunately, we live in a day and age now where you don't have to go down to your neighborhood law firm where it's all old white men charging you $1,000 an hour to draft a contract. Like, yay, right? Things like Destination Legal exist where you can get a coaching contract written by an attorney specifically for your industry. Like, what a great time to be alive and to be a coach. We have a lot of these tools now that didn't exist back then. And so I think thinking about it from that perspective. The other point is to just not get too overwhelmed at the beginning. When you're just starting out, and we can link this. I have a coach's legal checklist about the 4 most important things you need. But really at the very, very beginning, the only thing you need is a contract and a way to get paid. You don't necessarily need a website. You don't necessarily need an email. Like those are the 2 things you need right when you get started. And you want to have them right away, because the minute you're coaching, you're opening yourself up to liability. And so once you do that, no one wants to be sued. No one wants to end up in a lawsuit, end up in court. And that can happen at any time. And it's just one lawsuit, and that can take your business. You can lose, personal assets if you aren't protected. So really just getting that contract in from day one is so, so important. But you don't have to worry about everything else yet. Don't worry about terms of purchase for a program that you're not running. If you don't have a website, you don't need to worry about that stuff. Like legal is a toolbox that you add to as you grow. So most coaches start out doing one-on-one. So you want to have your one-on-one contract. Once that's full, yes, you might add on a group program or an online course. So at that time, you're going to want to add in terms of purchase for a group program or course to make sure that you're protecting those sales, that you're protecting your intellectual property, Then maybe down the road, you might be hosting a retreat. At that time, you want to have, a retreat contract in place. But at the beginning, you don't really need to worry about that. And so then to your second question, something that might overwhelm people or think they need at the beginning that they don't, and that's actually an LLC. So a lot of people worry that they shouldn't even be doing anything until they've incorporated, until they have an LLC, a limited liability company. And while that is important, it doesn't need to be done on day one. Again, it's the contract on day one. An LLC, sometime within the first 6 months to a year, once you start really making money, this is a viable business. It's important to do that because it helps, it separates your business and personal assets. So that's a way to protect yourself. B, for tax purposes, you get an EIN. It's easier to get a bank account. And C, again, just that air of legitimacy. When people see that you're a company, they're like, oh, she's legit. So, that's something that needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done on day one.
And so in the beginning, if you haven't yet created a business structure or filed an LLC, S Corp, whatever you decide to do, on the contract, you're just putting your own name as the sole proprietor?
Exactly. So you're a sole proprietor, but it can also be your business name. It doesn't necessarily have to be your name. You can have a company as a sole proprietor. So you could be, if it were you could be Kim Rich Coaching as represented by Kimberly Rich. And then just once you add in the LLC, it would be, Kimberly Rich Coaching LLC. You can still have a company name as a sole proprietor.
So this worry about getting sued, I think a lot of people are like, oh, that wouldn't happen to me. Like, why do I need to stress about that? Can you give some examples of where you've seen people not be protected, or, what are the things that we are even protecting ourselves from?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few different ones, mostly for coaches, it would be, liability from something going wrong through the coaching relationship. So, if you're a health coach for clients, this could be someone gets injured because they're following a plan or doing an exercise and, they get really hurt, or they don't meet the expectations that you've set out for them and they're just mad, right? You can pretty much sue for any reason. It doesn't mean the lawsuit's going to go anywhere, but just the headache of that can happen. For business coaches, I didn't make any money, or I lost money, or, you told me to run Facebook ads and now I'm 5K in the hole. I'm going to come after you for that money. For life coaches, like, I'm more miserable now. I didn't meet my soulmate. Like, any of those types of expectations that someone may have, which is why it's so important in your contract to have disclaimers that say you aren't making any guarantees, that, these are not professional services. You're not offering therapy here, or medical advice, or financial advice, or legal advice. So that's one way that, a client might end up bringing some kind of lawsuit. Other ways that it can happen are payment disputes that come up. If you go after them and they come after you for payment issues, IP issues that might come up if they take some of your work and start selling it, and then you end up having to go after them. But I would say the biggest issues that we really see are around unmet expectations and then other types of payment issues.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to call out that you said it can go both ways, because I've seen this in the industry now. Like, I've been around for a number of years. I have friends at every level, and it would shock you how many people have unmet expectations around the results that they wanted to get by signing up. And so they decide they want to cancel their commitment to a year-long program or a 6-month program or whatever. And it's like, without that contract in place, the coach would have no leg to stand on and say, hey, I have in my terms what there's no promised result, and you are committed to paying for the next 6 months, the next 12 months, whatever it is. And I'm like, this is what contracts are for. Like, I just see so many people wanting to break their contract and then accusing the mentor of being out of integrity. And I'm like, first of all, pot calling the kettle black, you're literally breaking your contract, which is exactly what contracts are for. And second, thank God that so-and-so has a contract in place.
Yeah, it's so true. I get emails or DMs every week from someone, a coach running into an issue, a client running into an issue. And my first question is always, what does your contract say? And some of them like sheepishly they're embarrassed. They're like, oh, I didn't have a contract and this is what happened, or what do I do now? And sometimes I have to say, this is an expensive learning lesson that if you had a contract, you probably would have had a different path forward. I think that I'm starting to see the industry turn where people are really seeing the importance of being in integrity, of keeping your contracts. But it's like buying a car and then like 2 months later being like, I don't really like this color, so I'm going to just turn this in and you're just going to give me all my money back, even though I've just been driving it for 2 months and drove it across the country, right? Like, who does that? You signed a contract. Yeah, it's like that's not a thing. So I think that is, again, a lot of people not taking coaching or the online industry as seriously as they should. But as we know, this is a real industry. There is a lot of money exchanging hands here. And it blows my mind. And I don't see this as much anymore. But a couple of years ago, where I would see people sending PayPal links and things for $10,000, $15,000 programs without any terms, without any check the box, without anything. And I just, especially in the, I don't want to say like spiritual world, but there are people that are like, well, all my clients are amazing. This would never happen to me. And I'm sorry, it's not true. And I promise you 99% of your clients will be amazing and they will be perfect for you. But 1%, it's going to happen. With legal, it's not a matter of if, it's when. If you're in business for any amount of time, you are going to run into an issue where you're going to be glad that you have your contract, as you said, to fall back on. It is your safety net, right? It's like health insurance or car insurance. Like, we don't love that we have to pay for these things until we need them. And then we're really, really, really glad that we have them.
Yeah, exactly. So just to take a step, I can get like so excited about this because I'm seeing it really present right now in my communities. But just to kind of like reiterate what it is that Sarah and I are saying, it's not necessarily that you are going to get sued and so you should have a contract in place. It's more likely that you will have people sign up for things with you, whether that is 6 one-on-one sessions, or maybe down the line, it's a group program that takes place over the course of 6 months, whatever. And you will have someone want to back out of that commitment. And so you've just forecasted income for X amount of weeks or months, or you've already collected it and now they're filing a chargeback and you need something to show the merchant processor that says, actually, this money is legally mine. Here are the terms that this person, this customer agreed to. And so that's where having this paperwork in place protects you. It's your safety net.
Yeah, and it's not just about you, it's about your client too. Like coaches or contracts outline boundaries, expectations. Like, how often are you meeting with your clients? What's your response time? Do they have access to you via Voxer? Can they call you at 2 a.m? And what are they responsible for? As we know, coaching is not just like a one-sided relationship. The clients have to bring it as well. And so when there is an issue, having the contract to refer back to is so helpful. Like, your client's upset that it took you 48 hours to respond. It's like, well, Charlie, if you look at the contract, you could see that like our response time is within 72 hours. So just keep that in mind in the future, right? And so it is for them too. It's not just for you.
Yeah. I mean, my contract has everything from, if you are given homework, you are expected to complete it ahead of time. If you need to cancel a session, you're expected to do it within 24 hours. Otherwise, you'll be charged a fee. And so it's just nice to like have that laid out so that there's no confusion later. And if there is, like you said, you have something to refer back to. One thing that is
like
new,
yours. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. Do you want to add to that, Sarah?
Yeah. So I was just going to say one other thing how it's so important for coaches. Like, you have a schedule too, right? And so in your contract should be included language about what if they have to cancel a call? What's the lead time up to that? Is it 24 hours? Is it 48 hours? If you have a client canceling 20 minutes before every call, like that can just mess with your whole schedule. So again, it just helps create those expectations and boundaries for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And so I'm curious how the introduction of AI has influenced people's need or perceived need for purchasing contracts from someone like you, because, now there's a world in which I think people plug into AI and say, make me a contract. How legal is that?
Yeah, I mean, hard to say, right? Like, who knows what's coming out of ChatGPT? And ChatGPT will tell you, like, this is not legal advice, and, double check. We know that it's a few years behind. So here's the bottom line. Did a few people that may have bought templates go create their own contract off ChatGPT? Yeah, probably. But these are the same people that would have just gone to Google and tried to create their own, what we call a Franken contract, where, you put in a bunch of things and, you don't know what you don't know. So you might have 3 payment clauses, 5 dispute resolution clauses, things that are conflicting. Like, you never know for sure if that is actually a legit contract. Same with if you use AI, you're never going to know if that's a legit contract. Some people are okay with that. Those are the people that previously used Google. Maybe now they're using ChatGPT. But then there's, plenty of people who are like, I want to take this seriously. I'm not just going to go use AI. I'm going to get my contract from someone that knows the industry. I want to know that this was written by an attorney. I want to know that this includes everything that it needs to. So, that's kind of my stance on it. There will always be people that are looking for the easy way out. And then there will always be people that are interested in making the investment to protect themselves.
100%. 100%. And so how do you respond to people who ask, but you're not a lawyer in my state, how can you offer me legal advice? How does that work exactly, being an online legal expert?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, I don't offer legal advice, right? Like, everything that I'm doing is legal education. So I'm not directly, in your business. Digital templates are digital products. There's no attorney-client relationship created. If you have contact with me, it's usually just asking me what contract or bundle is good for me. I'm not looking at your template, right? And so these, are digital products that are written by an attorney, but no attorney-client relationship is created unless you're purchasing a legal service from me, like a trademark, which is federal, can be done in any state. As far as each state rules go, contract law falls under common law. So in the US, Canada, UK, Australia, these rules are 99% the same. A contract is a contract. Now, whether there might be slight variances within states, maybe, because it's a digital product template, there's not 100% guarantee that it's going to meet every, thing in your particular state law. Now, we've never had an issue. I've never had anyone come back and say, this didn't work in my state. Again, because 99% of these laws are the same. If people ever have questions, I am always like, you can have a local attorney look at it and just make sure that it's, kosher. The other thing is, coaching is an unregulated industry. So there aren't clear requirements on what can be included in a coaching contract or what can and can't be done by coaches. And so that actually makes things a little bit easier from a legal perspective, because what our templates do is just, include what we see as the most important things. And what's nice is I know the coaching industry so well because I've been, I've always had coaches. I've been in coaching programs. I see some of the issues, so I can make sure that those are included. Whereas if you just go to LegalZoom or go to AI, there's no way they're going to know the nuances of the coaching industry like that.
Yeah, totally. So you mentioned trademarks. Who are the individuals that you are helping get trademarks, and why should people file for them?
Yeah, so I love trademarks. They are amazing business assets to have. So, if you're a new coach starting out, you may not be thinking about this yet. But as you grow your brand and you grow programs and you grow a business, having a registered trademark allows you to own your brand, right? And so we see them everywhere. We see them all day, every day. I'm holding my Stanley Cup. You can see the little R there. That means this is a registered trademark. Nobody else can have a water bottle with the name Stanley or anything similar to it. I'm walking down the street. I have a white cup with a green circle. It's Starbucks. If it's, purple and yellow, it's Dunkin' Donuts. Trademarks exist to help consumers see who's selling goods and services. So in the online space, most people are getting trademarks for, especially in the coaching world, for their business name, their program name, their signature course, their podcast, things like that, where, if you're an Amazon e-commerce store, like you're getting a trademark for the products you're selling, right? So trademarks are a business asset because they can be bought, they can be sold. If your business is ever acquired, 99.9% of buyers are going to make sure that you have that intellectual property, that you actually own the business. Because without it, you're building a business. Basically, it's like building a house on land you don't own. You see a house, it's vacant. You're like, hey, I'm just going to move in here. I'm going to build here. And then 3 months later, the owners come and kick you out. That's what can happen if you start a business, you're running a name and you don't own the trademark. So for example, Destination Legal is one of my trademarks. I'm running this business. If I didn't have the trademark, somebody else could start a law firm, go get the trademark, and then I would have to stop running it, right? And so there's a lot of nuances around, common law rights and who's using what first. But really, if you get to the trademark office first, you have a big leg up. So I often get the question, like, when is the right time to trademark? And, you can trademark anytime, even before you're selling goods or products. So Amazon has over 900 trademarks. A lot of them are intent to use, meaning they have products that they're thinking about selling and they want to reserve the name. So that you can do that, or you can do it once you're selling. The key is it has to be a good or service used in commerce. It can't be like the name of your Facebook group or just something you're using on your Instagram story. Like, it has to be tied to a good or service. And I like to use something called the gut punch test. So what the gut punch test is, if you're thinking about your signature program, the name of your business that you came up with while you were in the shower and you love it, you're like, this is the best name ever. So think about that. If you got an email tomorrow from someone else saying, this is mine, I own it, I have the trademark, you can't use it, you need to rebrand in the next 10 days, how would you feel? So if you get a gut punch, like, holy crap, like, I'm devastated, then it's time to trademark. If you're like, well, I don't mind a rebrand, I wanted to refresh anyway, then it's not. Because a trademark is an investment of time and money. It takes a year or more to get it. It costs money to hire a trademark attorney, which is an important step. And, you want to make sure that this is something that I'm going to be using in 5 or 10 years and really growing a brand around.
It's amazing. Yeah, I feel like this is a step that a lot of people either like overlook, or maybe they think is just not as important because they see all the same buzzwords being tossed around in the coaching space. It's like, how many programs have the name expand?
Right.
It's like possible that someone has trademarked that. One of the things that I know we've talked about before is really understanding why you would need to trademark a program or the name of your business, but not necessarily a book. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So the main reason is because the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office says so, right? And so you actually can't trademark the title of a single book. And I actually don't know why they have this rule. You can trademark a series of books like Harry Potter, Twilight, the Berenstain Bears, but you can't trademark just the single title of one book. I don't know why they have this, but you can you can trademark the name of your online course, your program, anything like that. And, I actually don't think there's a good answer as to why they have that rule. It's just something to be aware of.
But that's good to know, because you might have a group program. I'm speaking for myself as an example, a group program with a name, and then decide, oh, I want to turn this into a book so that I have a calling card to like bring even more people into that group program. And you might not need to trademark the book, but if the group program is something that you are tying to the book and it is not trademarked, then you are at risk of someone else coming along and saying, hey, I trademarked that. And now you have a whole book tied to it, a whole funnel.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great point. And, I think what you said before is absolutely true. There's so many people that just, it's not on their radar. They're like, oh, it's not a big deal. I have so many people come to me either after they have spent like thousands of dollars on a rebrand, created a new podcast, like built this whole website around a name, and then they come to me to trademark it. And I have to tell them it's taken, and you really shouldn't be using this, because then you're always wondering when that letter for trademark infringement is going to come. I've had people have to go through an entire another rebrand because they weren't thinking about this. So it's really important, even if you're not going after the trademark right away, anytime you're naming a program, a course, Google it. See who else is using it. See how it's being used on social media. See if the handles are taken. See what the hashtag is. And then you can always go to uspto.gov and do a free search and see if it's already trademarked, because there's nothing, I'm telling you, there's nothing more upsetting than spending a ton of money building a business around a brand and then losing it. And it can be just devastating. So the sooner you can wrap your head around it and just make sure that you're building your house again on a foundation that you either own now or plan to own in the very near future is really important.
I have another question about that. And apologize if I'm just asking for free legal advice on this interview, but do you need to trademark frameworks? So I'll be very explicit for the audience about, and that's not a pun, but you'll get it in a second, about the course in the book I'm talking about. I gave a training called Sell Like You Fuck. It's a magnetic marketing seductive sales strategy. And inside that training, you learn a 6-step formula called the Success Formula. And while I know I don't need to trademark the book that's coming, Sell Like You Fuck, it's a book, do I need to trademark the framework, the Success Formula, in addition to the Sell Like You Fuck program?
Yeah, I would for sure, because exactly what you just said, like you're now creating a whole funnel around this. You're creating spin-offs. And so you want to be known for this phrase, right? And you absolutely can do that. And it's important. And you can trademark a framework, a phrase like that, again, as long as you're selling something related to it, selling something under it. So Sell Like You Fuck, whether that is a course that you're going to bundle, modules, things related to it. And again, this is why it's really important to have a trademark attorney help you through this, because there are ways that we can spin it so that, we submit the right evidence to USPTO to show that we're meeting their guidelines, right? And so this isn't something that the ordinary person really understands how to do. And so that's why it's important to have an attorney that can help walk you through that and kind of figure out, okay, what within this, here's my business, what do I need to think about trademarking? What can I trademark? What can't I? What shouldn't I? Because you shouldn't necessarily trademark everything, right? Like I've had plenty of people and I'm like, well, that's not going to work for whatever reason. So it's not a black or white area, right? There's lots of nuances to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing you want, is to go out there and have your book and start talking about this and doing it on interviews and speeches, and then get a letter that someone else has trademarked it and you need to stop using it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that is the last thing I want. This is so helpful. Sarah, is there any additional words of wisdom or encouragement that you want to leave these new coaches with?
Yeah, I mean, just back to the beginning of what I said, one of my trademarks is protect your passion. I think that's the key thing to walk away with here. And again, to just think of legal, like Destination Legal's, one of our slogans is legal made easy. It doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. Again, get the coach's legal checklist, take it step by step, one thing at a time. And I promise, I don't make guarantees as an attorney, but I promise that you are going to feel more empowered in your business. You're going to feel more confident. You're going to feel more legit. And that's an awesome feeling to have. And so if you take away anything from this today, it's one, just get your one-on-one contract in place first. And then, just be follow Destination Legal Online. Just be aware of it, get educated, and, the pieces will come when they need to. And just, again, know that you're building a real business here, even if it is passion-based and all you want to do is help and transform people. You're still a business. You're here to make money. You're here to change lives, and let's do it in the right way.
Yeah. And for all of you who are wanting to spin wheels, worrying about a website before you start coaching, I love the permission slip that Sarah gave. If you're going to do one legit thing for your business before you start, just get a contract. Get a contract. And watch how much it helps with your imposter syndrome to actually be legit. Thank you, Sarah. 100%, I appreciate you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning into episode 43. If you want to get access to some of the simple contracts that we talked about on today's show, and you want to get them at 10% off, then head over to theprofitablecoach.com/043, and we'll have that and everything else we talked about linked up in the show notes. If you found today's episode valuable, do me a favor, drop us a review on your podcast app of choice. And if we're not already connected on Instagram, head over there to Transformation Academy Online or at the Kimberly Rich. I love hearing from you guys and want to continue to create the shows that you want to listen to. So thank you so much again for tuning in to today's episode, and we will catch you next week.